Hey, Mike here, and welcome to Mike Talks, mini Mike Talks. These are talks that enable a thriving posture in the workplace. We're going to do a 4-part series, and we're going to anchor it on a story and a quote. Here's the story. It's an ancient story. If you want life, if you really want to get this thing, if you want to live wholeheartedly, you need to be the person who finds treasure in the field and who, upon finding it, gets rid of the rest with joy. How about that? Rather random, hey? But that story has been so transformative to me. But let's couple it with a quote, a really good quote. Life is pure adventure, and the sooner we realize this, the quicker we can treat life as art. Angelou. Testing 1, 2. We're going to do a series, a 4-part series, and our anchor is a simple story and a quote. Here's the story. If you want life, if you really want to live a wholehearted life, you need to be the person who finds treasure in the field and who, upon finding it, with joy gets rid of all the rest. I know it's rather random, isn't it? But there's so much in that little story that enables a thriving posture. But let's couple it with this quote. Life is pure adventure, and the sooner we realize this, the quicker we can treat life as art. Angelou. The mindset of the adventurer. Life is, how would you complete that sentence? Just think about it for a moment. Life is. Some words that came to my mind when I pondered it were, life is pain. Or perhaps I would do life is challenging, or life is unfair. I think many people would potentially come up with that one. Or how about this one? A couple of weeks ago I was doing a workshop, and this guy walked into the workshop, and I could immediately see that he wasn't in a good place. The body language speaks. So I asked him how he was doing, and he responded and he said, "Oh, it's such a long day." And then he added onto it, "Every day is long and boring." So for this guy, life is long and boring days at the workplace. But Maya Angelou doesn't choose those words. She says, life is pure adventure. Now, let's quickly think about Maya Angelou. She was an activist. She was an activist with Martin Luther King Jr. They were fighting for freedom, for fairness, for justice. And how interesting that she chooses the words, life is pure adventure. She chooses something quite positive, something quite daring. Now let's go back to our story. If you want life, you've got to be the person who finds treasure in the field. What is the field? Well, the field is you, it's me. The field is what's inside here. The field is this day. What am I going to do with it? The field is the meeting that I'm about to go into. The field is the person that I'm with. Now, if we combine those two, life is pure adventure, the guy in the field, are we going to have this mindset which says, hey, there's something to discover today. There's something to discover within me. There's something to discover in the person that I'm with, in the meeting that I'm going to. But first question mark that comes to my mind is, but what do we do with those other statements? Because as we've already mentioned, life is challenging. Is it possible, however, that in order for us to engage the challenges of life, we first need to find the resources that life gives us so that we can handle the rest? Because we definitely don't want to discount the hardship. Is it possible that that which we find, the resources within, is actually the resources that we need to find our way out of difficulty? So what helps me in this instance is that beautiful novel by Paulo Coelho called The Alchemist. In this story, we have a little shepherd boy who goes on an adventure. He's got the mindset. And he crosses an ocean to a neighboring country, and then it all goes wrong. Because here's the deal, when we go on an adventure, there's often unexpected difficulty, and there's also unexpected delights. But he's sitting in this marketplace, and he's he's really in a bad place because all his money's been stolen. And he's saying to himself, I shouldn't have gone on this adventure. Why did I do this? Why did I sell my sheep? But as he ponders for a while and as he just begins to grab the situation, Cruella says these words in the book. He knew he had to decide between being the poor victim of a thief or being an adventurer in quest of his treasure. The boy said, I am an adventurer seeking treasure. You know, if you think about it, nothing had changed. It was still a battle. It was still unfair. But suddenly the boy found energy by first and foremost seeing the field as an adventure, something to find. And the rest of the book carries on. So I want to introduce you to two people that I'm going to call Sally and Joe. We're going to get to know Sally and Joe through this 4-part series. And as we get to know Sally and Joe, we're going to be answering an interesting question or an interesting observation. It's what we call the mystery of consciousness. It's how two people can be in the exact same context but have a totally different experience. Because one's got the mindset of the adventurer and the other doesn't. So Sally doesn't know why, but one day she arrived at the meeting on time. She had done the work. She had read the minutes. She knew what the agenda was about. She walked into the meeting room and she decided to sit in a different seat. She leaned in where normally she would lean out. She gave ideas. She asked questions, and she even volunteered for a project. When she left the meeting, she felt inspired. She had learned something about the colleagues with which she worked, and she had also learned things that were outside her area. Sally doesn't know why, but she decided to remain checked in. And over the months that followed, every meeting was invigorating, was inspiring, was a lean in. It came as no surprise that a couple of months later, when there was an opportunity for a promotion, Sally got the job. How different to Joe, who got upset with Sally the day Sally walked into the meeting room and took Joe's seat. Yeah? Have you ever been Joe? Leaning out. There's nothing to be gained here. But what we notice about Sally, Sally leans in. And then things begin to happen. Now here's an interesting thought. What was Sally doing? Sally's doing what we call job crafting. That's an interesting term, job crafting. Do you know that in almost every single job, there is an element which is task, and then there's an element which is initiative. Some jobs have a lot more initiative than task. Some jobs maybe have more task than initiative. Task is work that's given. This is what you have to do. Initiative is work that's taken. Job crafting is this notion which says, let me focus on the initiative part because I am probably able to change the experience of my job more than I realize. So Adam Grant, a brilliant professor of business, Wharton professor, he shares in his book Originals how there were some people who worked for Google who were less engaged than other people. I think that happens everywhere. But I don't know about you, Google is an aspirational business. It's probably the type of business most of us would want to work for. But there's some people in Google, like the engineers, who are totally engaged because they're doing creative work. And then there's others in Google who are more support staff. They have to follow process. They have to follow a way of doing things. And what they noticed were these people were less engaged than those people. So what did they do? A 90-minute workshop which just taught people to see their job as being more movable blocks than static stone, like Lego. For example, the way I show up at a meeting, like Sally, is always up to me. To share an idea is always up to me. The way I engage people, always up to me. To volunteer, it's up to me. To bring my values to the workplace, it's up to me. When we job craft, we take the mindset of the adventurer and we're actually saying this question, what treasure is there? Good. So let's begin to land this. What are a couple of things that you and I can do to try and adopt the mindset of the adventurer? Well, first one is the mantra of the shepherd boy. I am an adventurer seeking treasure. Imagine every day we just woke up and we said, hey, this is all an adventure. Could be difficult, but the way I manage it is by being the adventurer. The second thing that we can do is begin to change your language. So anybody who goes on an adventure invariably is excited. If I'm going to the Drakensberg for a 3-day hike, I get up early that first morning, not because I have to, but because I want to. People who are on an adventure get to, want to, are excited to. It's incredible the power of just changing some of those words in our vocabulary. Third thing, always ask yourself this question: what else? When you're sitting in that meeting, what else is going on here? And then lastly, what's quite a good idea is to develop a metaphor. One thing that I want to do is climb Kilimanjaro. That's an adventure. But I can bring that in as a bit of a metaphor. When I'm going through a difficult time during a particular day, I might just say to myself, hey Mike, remember you're climbing Kilimanjaro. And it's a bit of a steep face at the moment. So in other words, I take my present situation and link it by means of a metaphor to the adventure. When it's a really, really good day, I might say to myself, hey, Kilimanjaro sure is beautiful today. So a couple of practical tips that lead us into the mindset of what it is to be the adventurer. So let's end with a beautiful quote, and it comes from Nelson Mandela. Listen to these words carefully. There's so much in them. He says at the end of the Rivonia trial, he says, I have dedicated myself to this struggle of the African people. I have fought against white domination, I fought against black domination, and I have cherished the ideal of a free and fair society where all people live together in harmony with equal opportunity. And then he carries on and he says, this is an ideal which I hope to achieve and live for. But if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die. Just consider those words for a moment. We certainly see the battle. It's a battle for freedom. It's a battle for fairness. But do you pick up the spirit or the mindset of the adventurer in this? He sees himself as a person who can dig into his own resources. He sees an alternate future which can come about. Whether it's through living or through dying, he's got this spirit of adventure to engage the challenge. If we want to thrive in the workspace, we need the mindset of the adventurer.